We reached a sad time for America. This election has been a dumpster fire, to say the least. Radical left has managed to do exactly what they wanted to do, regardless of what the outcome ends up being. Both sides of the political aisle will now question the integrity of our elections, which opens the door for both sides to call for something to be done. The problem is, what each side wants to be done is completely different. Unfortunately, even if Trump somehow wins this, which is looking highly doubtful at the moment, of course, we know it's going to be tied up in court, but I don't trust our court system at this particular point in time. But even if Trump wins in court, gets back in office, we give a Democrat House, Republicans gain some ground, but not enough to take a majority. He won't be able to pass any kind of new legislation to safeguard future elections from mass voter fraud. And on the other side, fortunately, it looks like Republicans will at least maintain a majority in the Senate, which means, at least for now, if Democrats somehow steal this thing for Joe Biden or Kamala, if they remove Joe and put Kamala in, which is what a lot of people suspect will happen. Even if the Democrats get the White House with a Republican Senate, it'll mean, at least for now, Democrats can't pass any kind of legislation to permanently rig the system for themselves. Now, I know there's some of you out there probably going to be saying, there's no proof that voters conservatives are just sore losers. Really? Yeah, we'll just take a look at a few things here. Here we have in Arizona, voters are actually filing a lawsuit to restore their ballots canceled over Sharpies. There's actually a video going around about this. Arizona voters who claim their ballots were canceled because they were asked to use Sharpie markers to fill them out have filed a lawsuit demanding their ballots to be restored. This one actually just talks about one particular voter who's come forward. But if you go look around social media, you'll see massive reports from people in Arizona saying the same thing. Details the case of Maricopa County. Resident Lori Aguilera was given a Sharpie marker to fill out her ballot on election day. State officials have previously warned against felt-tip writing utensils for filling out ballots. A lawsuit states that Aguilera was alarmed when the ink of the Sharpie started to bleed onto the other side of the ballot. But despite that, was told to feed her ballot through the counting machine. The ballot, the lawsuit states, was not accepted and eventually canceled by the poll worker. Aguilera asked for a replacement ballot, was denied one. These voters were denied the right to vote. Election officials allegedly were part of the problem. A denial of the right to vote should not occur because of failures in the process of casting a ballot. We're asking that all ballots that were uncured or denied be identified and allowed to be cured. The lawsuit also wants Arizona to allow voters who had their ballots canceled for this reason to be present when their ballots are handled and adjudicated. For those unaware, cured means a ballot that wasn't filled out correctly, or for whatever reason, multiple things that can cause a red flag for the ballot. Voter be contacted and are allowed to fix the ballot so that it's valid. Seeing the same thing in Georgia right now with mail-in ballots, but the way it's being done is kind of suspect. Like I said, there's a video going around. Ballot workers were actually handing out Sharpies. There was actually one polling location where there was a guy that knew that Sharpies weren't working, so he was trying to give people ballpoint pens. They called the cops on him. So, again, those that are looking at this particular article say that it's Wayne Patterson. Multiple massive reports from voters in Arizona saying the same thing, and from other states as well, but Arizona seems to be the biggest one. And Maricopa County seems to be the main one they're looking at, which typically, from my understanding, tends to lean conservative. Here's your next one. Suitcases, coolers rolled into Detroit voting center at 4 a.m. Bought in a secure counting area. Now keep in mind, this is talking about the night before. They had said they were stopping counting the vote and were going to resume again at 10 o'clock, 9 or 10 o'clock the next morning. And here we go at 4 a.m. Stuff coming in. This is footage taken from her cell phone by Kelly Sorrell. She's a Texas lawyer, member of Lawyers for Trump. She saw a person in a white van loading up a red wagon outside the ballot counting location and bringing it in instead. I think they meant to say inside. She released video on To Texas Scorecard because she wanted to raise alarms that the box may have been a ballot box that arrived long after all ballots were expected to have been received at the counting facility. Our website also reports other images appear to show suitcases and coolers moving in and out of the secure area where mail-in ballots were being counted during the shift change at 4 a.m. Report continues on to say that according to Sorrell, visitors were able to enter and leave the facility where the votes are being counted without any identification check. Workers were apparently working in 6-hour shifts, meaning they did not have a need for overnight luggage. Trump campaign has filed a lawsuit to stop the counting of ballots until the campaign is granted access to ensure there is no cheating. There's nothing you're probably seeing going around on social media on the Democrat side. Trump's suing to stop voting accounts. So he's trying to disenfranchise voters. No, they're not wanting ballots not to be counted, period. They're wanting it to temporarily stop until they're allowed to have a watcher there to verify what's being counted, and that is within their right. Democrats can do the same thing if they would like. And I think somebody from both sides should be there, to be honest with you, as well as probably a third party, nonpartisan, like independent, libertarian, something, to make sure the other two are not trying to cause trouble. And again, in this situation, we don't know what's in these boxes. We don't know what's in these suitcases. Ms. Sorrell apparently is a poll watcher, or is familiar with some of the ballot boxes and has seen the boxes that they carry ballots in, and it says this one in the wagon does look a lot like the ones they carry ballots in. Now we have no way of verifying that there are ballots inside that box. I mean, the guy could be toting in a box full of Oreos or something. You don't really know for sure, but the fact that there's that lack of security where they're not checking these people's IDs, saying, hey, what's in those boxes? What's in those coolers? What's in this? What's in that? Making sure, just for safety's sake, you don't even know the person could be carrying weapons. So just for security, they should be checking this type of stuff. So that they're not, it's suspicious enough to raise a red flag. Here we now have a Michigan poll watcher saying the ballots were turned in with no names. Not really a whole lot to this article. There's a video here you can watch. She's talking about seeing them with no names on them. And of course, I read it back to the previous article that we just read is, just what was in the boxes that were being carried in late Monday night, early Tuesday morning. Are Democrats filling in the names on these ballots as they count them? You don't know. Again, even me personally, I can be a little wary of this one as there's really no source name. It's just a video of this person who is a poll watcher, no name given in the article. But, you can see in this picture, and there's videos of this as well, this location with people trying to look in the windows to see what's going on. Started putting poster board up to cover the windows. If you're not up to anything suspicious, why would you need to cover the windows? I've seen some people trying to explain, well, it's distracting them from doing their job, blah, 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 blah. Just, if you aren't emotionally or mentally stable enough to ignore side distractions and count ballots, then you probably shouldn't be working at the polls. That's just my personal opinion. Here we have a Michigan County clerk showing that the vote totals counted by the election software did not match their printed tabular tapes. An election clerk in Michigan discovered that total votes counted by election software did not match printed tab tapes. And the Michigan software is what's used to count votes. It's putting in the incorrect totals. Here we have WILX reported that Antrim County Clerk Office noticed some inaccuracies with posted unofficial results at 4 a.m. on Tuesday. They immediately reviewed the results. The office has been working around the clock to identify what caused the inaccuracies. Total votes that were counted by the election software did not match printed tab tapes. Official ballot results were based on the printed tab tapes. Therefore, the printed tab tapes from each precinct will be counted manually. The results will be deemed official once the independent board of canvassers verifies them. At least here we know they call them. And the official totals will be based on tab tapes, not the machine, but, how do we know that, how many areas are there where there wasn't a diligent worker like that caught it and is starting to, where they can hand count? And again, we don't know how large the discrepancy was in that area, but in the election, it looks like it's this close. It doesn't take too long for a discrepancy to change the outcome. because whoever the eventual winner is, it's looking like they're barely going to have right at 270 votes, electoral votes, or just above, like less than 290. It's not going to be as big of a margin as we saw in 2016. Now here, Detroit precinct chair says ineligible ballots are being counted. Numerous voting irregularities, excuse me. Easy for me to say, right? So Dustin Keenan, chairman for Precinct 219 in Detroit, noticed multiple voting irregularities that he reported, and he now says he feels helpless that anyone will care. He states, "We were instructed not to accept ballots that were not specifically marked as received, but I saw it happen. I called the hotline they provided to us for problems, and the people there did not know what to do. These people were claiming they never received their live ballots, but they could have just been lying and turned them in later. It's not possible for us to check those things at the polling places." And of course, it does note here that election currently under scrutiny in no small part to the record number of absentee ballots, causing chaos. He goes on and states, "In the poll book, these ballots were marked as sent, but we let them vote anyway. We had them sign affidavits, which is the process, that they wouldn't turn in those ballots later. We wanted to let everyone vote, but now I'm skeptical, even though some of these people seemed credible. The absentee process, sometimes referred as the AV process for absentee voter, had what Keenan described as 2 mere hours of training, mostly online, and a PDF document to read." There's a link to that document if you want to check it out yourself. I think it's very possible that there are rogue ballots that were in the mail, and that there's potential voter fraud in the system, even for the people who were well trained to spot it. The training for the AV process was unclear. The checklist didn't work for the situations we found ourselves in, and I suspect more election day observers let people vote who shouldn't have. They also have a copy of the affidavit people sign when the situation happens. I took my job very seriously to protect our democracy, and I still think there's a strong chance that voter fraud happened right in front of me. Again, this is one guy. We don't know how credible he is. Could be this particular precinct chair being paranoid, but the lack of training provided that's noted here to poll workers on how to deal with this type of stuff is concerning. They don't know how to deal with this stuff, so even if they're trying to do their job to the best of their ability, they could inadvertently allow voter fraud because they're not trained well enough to spot it or stop it. And apparently the hotline they give them the call, they don't know what to do either, so that creates a vicious cycle of nobody knowing what to do. Here we have Michigan County discovering Trump votes being omitted. We'll scroll down here. Jay DeBoyer is the county clerk for St. Clair County, which is currently 2-1 in favor of Trump, and blames hitting the quote-unquote wrong button for causing President Trump's totals to be a significant number of votes off. This mistake is critical in Michigan, where they have 16 electoral votes, only separated by 80,000 votes statewide, according to the New York Times. Michigan has 83 counties, and St. Clair County has 163,040 people, according to the census as of this past August. There were 127,963 registered voters in the qualified voter file. The county today reports 134,248 registered voters, of whom 92,670 voted in the November 3rd, 2020 election. Eagle Eye State Representative Shane Hernandez spotted the vote discrepancy being reported in his home county of St. Clair, up in Michigan's northeastern thumb area. Contacting his county clerk about the apparent discrepancy in precincts Maryville 2 and 3, where it showed no absentee ballots for the president, the clerk fixed the error and updated the totals midday today. "I saw there were missing votes in the county and worked to find them and realized the absentees were missing. Activists need to check every county for votes like this. This was a complicated election, and the presidency might very well come down to a few thousand votes. I was able to find these problems just sitting at home. I hope everyone looks into this and finds and fixes any problems." Many Michigan counties don't properly post or make available their data sets for easy comparison and review by the public, and it will take time for others with sufficient experience and skill to review the published results to ensure that they are accurately reporting President Trump's vote or Biden's vote, whichever. Clerk Jay DeBoyer was asked to comment and has not responded. So again, did he accidentally hit the wrong button? Do we believe it was an accident or not? Depends on who you trust, right? But even if it was actually really an accident, how often does it happen? Is it happening at multiple locations? This person was diligent and caught some discrepancies, but how many locations are there where maybe this happens, even if it's on accident, and they just don't catch it? And again, in a really close race, it don't take a discrepancy too far one way or the other to shift the final result. Now we hear Minnesota and Wisconsin both had 89 to 90% turnout, which is highly unlikely. You can look here at the 2020 election results showing Minnesota 90% turnout, Wisconsin 89% turnout. The highest after that, Florida, 79%. So those top two are at least 10% above every other state. Here they also show it in comparison to previous elections. You look at Minnesota, 79%, 78%, 76%, 75% in previous presidential elections, and now jump up to 90%. They've been in that mid to high 70% range. You know, we want high voter turnout. Ideally, we want all Americans to do their civic duty and vote. So not discouraging high voter turnout, but when it jumps that high above where it's been for a particular area traditionally, it's a red flag, can raise suspicions. You look at Wisconsin, 73, 69, 70, 67, 89. So they've been around high 70s, high 60s, low 70s. Now they're up to almost 90%. Usually outliers like that are suspicious when it comes to voter turnout. Yeah, maybe those two states just happen to say, hey, this is the most important election of our lifetime, no one went and voted. Again, it does justify my opinion. Taking a little bit closer look and just to see them and verifying, make sure there's no duplicated voters, especially with the massive mail-in votes. It's hard to tell what caused this sudden jump. Here we have James O'Keefe's Twitter. Michigan Postal Service whistleblower details directive from superiors. Backdate late mail-in ballots as received November 3rd, 2020, so they are accepted. They told her to separate them from standard letter mail so they can hand stamp them with yesterday's date and put them through. So you got the video here from James O'Keefe. Again, this is one particular postal worker, and when it comes to whistleblowers, as we've seen on with some of the whistleblowers that they used against Trump, you always have to wonder how credible is the whistleblower. But again, just putting it out there for those of you to make up your own, out there watching the video, to make up your own mind. And here we have, and this is not the only example I saw of this. There was a thread somewhere, I can't seem to find it now, where somebody had taken multiple examples of this into one screenshot. But this is from Fleckus Talks. Turns out 118-year-old William Bradley voted via absentee ballot in Wayne County, Michigan. William Bradley died in 1984. How long has this been going on? Try it for yourself. And here he has his screenshots. He's looking for a specific William Bradley. Birth month, March of 1902. Zip code. And here he's showing he voted on November 3rd, 2020. Ballot sent 9/19, so there's a mail-in ballot. And here's the online death record showing this William Bradley died 1984. Now, there's a lot of people out there responding to saying, there could be two William Bradleys in Wayne County, Michigan. It's a large county. Two of them that were born in March of 1902. Now they're saying, how did he know to look for that specific month? Maybe he happens to know this William Bradley. Maybe it's a relative of his or a friend that he just happens to say, you know what, I'm just going to test this and see. And here you have it. I did see another one somewhere. Like I said, I can't seem to find it again. If I do, I'll add a link to the comments later. I'll edit the comments and put it in there. Do it as a pinned comment or edit the description to add it. Or maybe both. People have tested that and found that there are people who, based on their date of birth, they're shown had voted in this election, but based on their date of birth, they're older than the oldest living person known in the world right now. So, again, we don't know how often this is happening. This could be just a few one-off cases, but you don't know. But again, in an election, especially at local levels, it can be decided by just a few votes. I mean, if you're in a small town somewhere, I know one small town in the state I live in where a mayor won by 2 votes. So, it doesn't really take a lot of this to swing an election when it's very close. And again, by the time this video uploads, I'm sure there's going to be more examples of stuff coming out with people posting, stating, here's examples of potential voter fraud. Will all of them be valid things? Probably not, but, think about it. If even one of these things turns out to be a valid example of voter fraud, that's a problem, especially in close elections. We're at a point right now where we're potentially headed toward being a banana republic here in the United States. And that's not a good thing. I mean, one other thing, just as a food for thought, if you have some good explanation for it, I'd love to have you put it in the comments. But if you look at it, it looks like Republicans have gained some seats in the House. Not a whole lot. I think maybe around 5 net gain. But with Republicans gaining in the House, looks like they have maintained the Senate. So if that many people were voting Republican down ballot, how would they not have also voted Republican for president? They're also saying now that there's a record. Joe Biden has gotten more votes than any presidential candidate in history. Look at his rallies compared to Trump rallies. Now, I know he was limiting somewhat due to COVID, but even so, you look at like the car parades that he had for him compared to car parades for Trump. The enthusiasm for Biden was way, 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 way low compared to Trump. So factoring all those things together, you expect me to believe that all these people just magically showed up to the polls to vote for Joe Biden, especially when most of the Bernie bros said they weren't voting for Joe Biden, period. Just food for thought. Thanks for watching the video. Like, comment if you share, and I will see you again later.